Hello, David and Attenborough. I like bunnies. Do you like bunnies too?
The sound of pencils scratching against paper made the air in the classroom feel thick, even though it was the only sound that could be heard. A history test was being administered, and Princess Charlotte was sitting at her desk, poised, with her eyes fixed on the paper in front of her. The clock was ticking, and the final moments of the test were being counted down. What year was the beginning of the First World War? In the final examination that she was required to take before the nationwide junior essay competition, which she had participated in every year ever since she was able to read and write, was one of the questions that she had to answer. Some of the other students were moving quickly through the questions, while others were pausing and chewing their pens in an effort to concentrate. She was surrounded by students who were completely engrossed in their work. When it came to the majority of students, it was merely another test, another obstacle to conquer within the routine of school. On the other hand, Charlotte valued this particular examination more than the others. She had a good understanding that her performance was being evaluated more closely than that of anyone else. Royalty was never permitted to suffer from mediocrity. As she went through the list of potential responses to the first question, her fingers became increasingly tense around the pencil she was holding. Although the answer choices were arranged in an orderly fashion, Charlotte's attention was drawn to the first option. He made a mistake. A number of years had passed since the year that they had listed. There was a flutter in her chest. While she was doing so, she quickly looked over the other options, but they all contained the same error. In a state of mental agitation, Charlotte bit her lip. She was well versed in history. The correct year was unknown to her. In addition, she was aware of the repercussions that would result from allowing something of this nature to go unpunished. She moved around in her seat and cast a glance in the direction of the other students. James Fitzgerald was sitting a few rows away, scribbling nervously, as if he was eager to complete his work. Despite the fact that he appeared to be unaware of the disparity, his eyes darted over his paper. Charlotte was hesitant. Should she make her voice heard? Because of this, she would be the center of attention, and she could already feel the pressure of her title pressing down on her. When you were royalty, you had to be flawless, at all times. While she was making her decision, her hand shook slightly and she set the pencil down. It was imperative that the appropriate action be taken. She slowly raised her hand and looked in the direction of Mr. Thompson, who was standing by the whiteboard and going over his own notes. It was impossible to read his expression as he glanced over. While Charlotte waited, her heart began to beat more quickly. "Charlotte, you agree?" With a tone that conveyed both curiosity and mild amusement, Mr. Thompson inquired, demonstrating that he was clearly taken aback by the interruption. Charlotte said, "I believe there is a mistake on the test, sir," while attempting to maintain a steady tone in her voice. "When it comes to World War I, the years are not correct." A hush fell over the room. It was as if every single person was looking at Charlotte. While some of her classmates exchanged glances with one another, others remained still in their seats entirely. Clearly irritated, James raised an eyebrow in exasperation. A slight frown appeared on Mr. Thompson's face, which had previously been bemused. "Why are you so certain, Charlotte?" With a tone that was somewhat dismissive, he inquired. "It's possible that you're wrong. I'll go over it with you later." On the other hand, Charlotte was not going to back down. "There is no doubt in my mind, sir. The year is incorrect." The quiet murmur of disbelief that was in the air was something that she could feel as she spoke, and she could feel the tension in the room rising. It was not about the mistake. Rather, it was about her standing up in front of her classmates and correcting her teacher. Indeed, it was unheard of. Once again, she is a smarty pants, and she claims that the question is incorrect. James remarked, albeit in a hushed tone, "Huh?" as if she is perfectly aware of everything. Despite the fact that his tone was as icy and snarky as it always was, Charlotte did not mind. They had never been able to get along with one another anyway. "James, what if she turns out to be correct?" The friend of Charlotte, Ellie Parker, responded to James's argument. "It would imply that all of the other questions could be incorrect as well, wouldn't it? The letter E stands for elephant, so learn to be quiet when you are not being spoken to." James gave a retort that was so forceful that it finally caught Mr. Thompson's attention. Not a sound. His tone was significantly louder than theirs. "You, James, should be careful with the words that you use in this class." James became entangled in his chair. Mr. Thompson finally turned his attention back to Charlotte. With a nervous tapping of his fingers on his desk, he hesitated for a moment. In spite of the fact that his voice was devoid of any conviction, he told Charlotte that we would investigate the matter after class. "I ask that you proceed." Nevertheless, Charlotte was unable to simply let it go. It was already too late for her to change her mind. Her voice remained steady as she continued. "The correct year is 1914, sir. It is not 1913, 1924, or any of the other years that are written here." She stood firm. Her voice was steady. As her heart raced, she looked directly into Mr. Thompson's eyes. After giving her a careful look for a considerable amount of time, he switched his focus to the other students in the class. "Okay, everyone, take a seat." A smile was forced upon Mr. Thompson as he spoke. "Let's bring this to a close. Once that is over, we will go over the test." Although he moved on quickly, Charlotte was able to sense a change in the atmosphere of the room as the murmurings started. Indeed, despite the fact that they were not particularly loud, they were sufficient to make her feel exposed and even vulnerable. In an effort to concentrate, she returned to her paper. However, her thoughts continued to race. Would she be making a mistake? Is this going to cause even more trouble? Charlotte attempted to ignore the looks of her classmates as she gathered her belongings as the bell rang and the class came to an end. Despite the fact that James did not speak to her, his eyes continued to look at her as he left. Despite the fact that there was no sound, Charlotte could sense his judgment. Although the sun was shining brightly over the courtyard, Charlotte did not experience any of the warmth that it provided. When she was there, the courtyard, which was normally a place of tranquility and escape, felt more like a stage where everyone was watching her. She located a bench in the corner of the room, and she sat down with her hands resting on her lap. In a flash of lightning-fast thinking, she recalled the events that had transpired in the morning, including her bold move. It was beginning to dawn on her then. Was she acting in the appropriate manner? The reaction of Mr. Thompson was so ambiguous that it did not provide any kind of consolation. There had been a sense that her actions were required, but now she was not so sure. What would happen if she was caught for causing a disturbance in the peace? We can imagine how dissatisfied her parents would be. Her train of thought was disrupted by the sound of footsteps that she had often heard before. Ellie made her way over and sat down next to her, her eyes kind and understanding as she did so. "How are you doing?" The tone of Ellie's question was light, but it was tinged with concern. A sigh escaped Charlotte's mouth as she leaned back against the bench. "It's not clear to me, Ellie. It is possible that I should not have said anything at all. What if they believe that I am attempting to cause a commotion? So what if they think I'm just trying to impress them?" Ellie was the subject of her gaze as she looked over at her eyes looking for proof. A reassuring smile from Ellie, which always helped to wash away Charlotte's uncertainties and fears, appeared on her face. In addition to being stunning and endearing, Ellie was a brilliant young lady. Despite the fact that she did not come from a more privileged background than Charlotte did, this did not affect the profound connection and friendship that they shared. Charlotte was someone who Ellie had known for a few years, and she had always admired her for her intellectual prowess and her generous nature. In addition to this, she regarded Charlotte as a typical individual who merely desired to be accepted by her peers. On numerous occasions, Ellie provided Charlotte with the much-required solace, acceptance, and genuine friendship that she longed for. Aside from that, she was a way to get away from the pressures of royal life. Ellie was not only a smart study partner, but she was also exceptionally intelligent. By working together, they were able to achieve perfect grades and triumph over competing schools in a variety of matches. The power team was, without a doubt, them. You made the right decision, Charlotte. The test was incorrect, and you made the necessary corrections. There is no such thing as being perfect. Rather, it is about being honest. Charlotte found herself clinging to Ellie's words and finding that they were not only straightforward, but also profound. Still, what about the rest of the people? Charlotte inquired about it. But what if they don't believe that it's about being honest? What happens if they simply believe that I am attempting to be superior to them? But who cares? In a tone that was light but serious, Ellie announced. However, if they are unable to recognize that you did what was right, then that is their problem. She gave Charlotte a gentle prod. What else is there to say? Because of that, I believe they respect you. It is not often that someone compliments a teacher, and it is especially rare when it is someone like you. Charlotte accidentally exhaled a breath that she had been holding in for a long time. Even though Ellie's words were straightforward, they helped her feel more buoyant. Undoubtedly, Ellie was correct. It's possible that this wasn't about how you looked. All that mattered was doing what was right, regardless of the consequences. It was irrelevant even if there were some individuals who did not comprehend it. When the bell rang, it indicated that the break time had come to an end. Charlotte experienced a refreshing surge of determination as they stood up to make their way back to the classroom. It was impossible for her to alter the events that had transpired, but she could certainly move forward with her head held high. The subsequent class was once again about history, but this time there was a distinct change in the atmosphere. Charlotte had brought the error to the attention of Mr. Thompson, who then went to speak with the headmaster about it. The door opened just as the students were beginning to settle in, and the headmaster himself entered the room. When he looked at Charlotte, in spite of the fact that he was a tall man with a serious expression on his face, there was a trace of respect in his gaze. Respect. As the headmaster spoke, his tone was calm but firm. "I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge a minor oversight that occurred in today's examination," he said. "There was a mistake in the year that World War I was fought, as Princess Charlotte pointed out. She had the right idea. It is admirable that she pays such close attention to detail and has the courage to speak her mind." There was complete silence in the room. Charlotte was aware of the rising temperature in her cheeks, but she did not look the other way. She had no reason to do so. It wasn't about trying to get approval from others. When it came to standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult, this was about doing so. A gentle clapping sound could be heard coming from the rear of the room as the headmaster was speaking. At first, it was hesitant, but as more students joined in, the volume of the conversation increased. All of the students in the class rose to their feet and clapped for her as the applause continued to grow increasingly loud. In addition to the correction, they were applauding for other reasons as well. To take a stand, to question the established order, and to act morally when no one else would was a courageous act that required a lot of courage. As she stood there, Charlotte was torn between feelings of pride and surprise. The reality was not what she had envisioned at all. She had anticipated being reprimanded and possibly even scorned. On the other hand, she was getting something that was significantly more valuable: pay homage. After the clapping had subsided, Charlotte found herself smiling, feeling as though the burden of the day had been lifted. The fact that she had acted in accordance with her moral convictions was, in the end, the only thing that mattered. Charlotte found herself walking out of the building with Ellie by her side as the school day came to a close. Ellie could be seen accompanying Charlotte, despite the fact that the day had been full of unexpected turns. Charlotte experienced a sense of improvement as they got closer to the entrance of the school. The storm that had been raging inside of her had subsided. Due to the fact that she had been truthful and had rectified the mistake that had been made on the test, she had been given a standing ovation. So, what else could she possibly want? Charlotte returned to Kensington Palace later that evening and sat by the window in her room, watching the lights of the city twinkle below her. The door opened and closed quietly behind her parents as they entered the room. They were aware of the news. "Is it Mom?" Charlotte turned her back on her parents and her voice began to trail off as she did so. Her eyes were looking around in a calm and searching manner, as if she was waiting to be certain of the occasion before she rushed to speak. Her mother congratulated her daughter, Charlotte Kate, with a voice that was filled with pride. In addition, her father, Prince William, remarked that you made the right choice. "Do you listen?" displaying a radiant and proud smile. When William responded, he did so in a tone that was quite lofty. "I am aware of everything that is said about you, my young eaglet." A smile appeared on Charlotte's face as her heart swelled with gratitude. The applause and the standing ovation were not the focus of the situation. What mattered was that she was aware that she had accomplished something worthwhile and significant. Moreover, she experienced for the very first time the realization that her position as a princess entailed more than simply donning a crown. Because of this, she had to take a stand for the truth and challenge the norms, even though no one anticipated her to do so. And it was at that precise moment that Charlotte reached a significant realization. There was no such thing as being perfect in leadership. It was about having the bravery to speak up, to correct what was wrong, and to be honest with yourself about who you are on the inside. She was aware that this was the most important and valuable lesson of all. In the days that followed, Charlotte and Ellie spent a significant amount of time studying at the school library in order to get ready for the junior essay competition. The idea of Charlotte writing about the negative effects of plastic litter and waste into the oceans was something she had considered in the past, but she ultimately decided against it. She had a superior plan, one that would unquestionably bring her the prize of gold. These are the minor errors that teachers make, and how they have an impact on the grades of their students. At one point, she was sitting in the library and slowly scribbling when she looked up at Ellie. She inquired, keeping her fingers crossed for a genuine response, "This title is quite lengthy, isn't it?" "As far as being creative is concerned, Lottie, there is no such thing as right or wrong, nor is there such a thing as long or short." Ellie began quiet and softly. If it is something that you feel is right in your heart, then it is a good idea. When Charlotte looked at herself, she smiled. There were times when she questioned whether or not she and Ellie were on the same age. It was so sage of her. Whatever the case may be, Charlotte kept the title and continued writing her essay about how even adults and teachers are not immune to making mistakes. The importance of being careful and cautious was emphasized by her, and she urged more educators to model their behavior after that of Mr. Thompson. Be kind, courteous, and attentive to the children and students who are in their immediate vicinity. What are your thoughts on Charlotte's ability to speak her mind, even when it meant going against the guidance of those in high positions? Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to give this post a like and subscribe to receive additional stories that will inspire you to be brave and honest. Your time has been appreciated, and I hope to see you in the next video.